The gate had been the HOA's obsession from the moment they realized my ranch didn't fall under their authority. It sat at the edge of their neatly trimmed subdivision, a weathered steel barrier marking the beginning of land they couldn't control. For months, Karen and her board circled it like vultures, dreaming of a way to claim it, regulate it, or tear it down. I watched quietly, letting their frustration build. One Monday morning, I returned from town to find the gate chained shut with a shiny new HOA lock, complete with their logo stamped on the side like a trophy. Karen had even taped a notice to the bars claiming the gate violated community access standards. They truly believed they had cornered me. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that the gate they had locked was not the original. The real one had been replaced months earlier with a design I had engineered specifically for this moment. A gate that wasn't just a gate. For weeks, I'd listened to their threats, their warnings, their smug declarations about rules and compliance. I knew they'd eventually try something drastic. HOA bullies always do. So I built in my insurance, a hidden mechanism wired into the frame, invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. Most people would assume it was an old ranch gate. The HOA certainly did. When I saw the chain and lock that day, I didn't get angry. I didn't call anyone. Instead, I parked my truck, stepped out, and quietly inspected the hinges, exactly where the surprise waited. Karen had gathered a small crowd behind her fence, watching proudly, arms crossed like she'd finally achieved victory. They had no idea they'd locked themselves into a trap of their own making. I pressed a small, wireless fob in my pocket. The mechanism inside the gate clicked, and the trap I'd prepared months in advance woke up. The HOA was seconds away from learning they had just messed with the wrong rancher. The gate didn't swing open. It folded, quietly, smoothly, and completely out of alignment with anything the HOA understood about ranch hardware. The steel frame separated into two angled panels, collapsing inward like a mechanical jaw, releasing tension. Karen's proud smile dissolved as she realized something was very wrong. HOA locks weren't supposed to behave like that. The crowd behind her murmured, confused. They leaned in, trying to understand how their shiny padlock was now dangling uselessly from half a gate that no longer obeyed its original shape. What they didn't know was that I had designed the mechanism to respond only to my remote signal. If anyone tried to tamper with it physically, the hinges would freeze in place. But when I pressed the fob, the system shifted, redistributed tension, and made their lock meaningless. And that wasn't the real trap. I stepped closer, hands in my pockets, watching Karen scramble to regain her confidence. She shouted something about vandalism and property damage, trying to convince her audience this was somehow my fault. But the board members standing beside her were already confused. They had no idea how their little lock had become a prop in a show they didn't control. A second click echoed from inside the frame, a sound too soft for them to recognize. It was the gate's internal recorder activating. For months, the HOA had tried to document me. They filmed me, photographed me, sent me notices. But while they obsessed over surveillance, I quietly installed my own system, built directly into the metal. Every time they touched the gate, tried to rattle it, measured it, or threatened it, the recorder captured everything. Karen didn't know she'd been starring in her own highlight reel. Suddenly, one of the board members noticed the red LED blinking faintly inside the steel. His face paled as he put the pieces together. He whispered to Karen, who dismissed him angrily, until I walked right up to the collapsed structure and tapped the hinge panel. A screen inside the frame lit up briefly, showing timestamp footage of the board tampering with the gate on 3 different nights. Karen froze. The entire crowd went silent. Tampering with a gate on private ranch land wasn't a violation. It was trespassing. Documented trespassing. and the HOA had just provided the evidence themselves. I still didn't say a word. I didn't need to. Their panic grew on its own. The more they tried to explain, the more the recorder displayed clips of them plotting to cut the hinges, measuring the fence line, discussing how to make the gate disappear so they could force public access across my land. When the final clip played, the one where Karen bragged about locking him out so he learns who's boss, the board finally broke. 2 members stepped away from her. Another pulled out his phone, already calling someone. Karen tried to grab his arm, but he shook her off. The trap wasn't the collapsing gate. It wasn't the footage. It wasn't even the fact that they had tampered with private property. It was the timing. Because just as the last clip ended, a truck from the county property office rounded the corner onto the access road. I had called them earlier, not to complain, but to follow up on a previous survey request. They weren't here to punish the HOA, but the HOA didn't know that. The officer stepped out, clipboard in hand, and Karen immediately panicked, trying to talk over him about violations and urgent enforcement. But the officer ignored her, walked directly to me, and greeted me by name, calm, professional, familiar. Karen went silent as he reviewed the frame, the tampered lock, and the recorded footage I showed him. The HOA waited, expecting punishment to fall on me. But instead, the officer turned to Karen and asked a question that made the entire group flinch. Why is your organization installing locks on land you don't own? The board members backed away as Karen stumbled through excuses. But the footage, the collapsed gate, the trespassing, and the recorded conversations made everything painfully clear. The HOA wasn't enforcing rules. They were overreaching, trespassing, and trying to seize access to land that legally belonged to me. The officer handed Karen a notice. Not a fine. Not a warning. Something far more humiliating. It required the HOA to cease all interactions with my ranch gate, pay for the removal of their unauthorized lock, and submit a written acknowledgement that the property was outside their jurisdiction. The board stared at her. She stared at the paper. Her power evaporated in real time. The trap had worked exactly the way I planned. Expose them. Document them. Let them destroy themselves. And now, their final humiliation was only moments away. Karen tried to hold herself together, but the board's silence told her everything. The officer waited, pen ready, while she struggled to sign the acknowledgement admitting the HOA had no authority over my ranch. Her hand shook the entire time. The crowd watched as the woman who once barked orders at everyone now stood exposed, powerless, and cornered by her own arrogance. When she finished, the officer removed the HOA's lock and handed it back to her like a souvenir she never wanted. I tapped the fob again. The gate rose smoothly into its original shape, sealing their humiliation in the clean click of perfectly engineered steel. Karen stepped back, bewildered, realizing the gate she thought she conquered had outsmarted her at every stage. Word spread fast, and within days the HOA stopped all attempts at control. Meetings quieted. Complaints died. Karen vanished from the road entirely. My ranch remained untouched, my gate undefeated, and the HOA finally understood. Some doors stay locked because the person on the other side planned it that way. Hit follow for more wild HOA justice stories.